1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and resume the workshop. The item that we're currently on is Native American Honor Flight presentation. So we have Mike McCoy from our legislative department here. He helped put this together along with Bob Green from Mid-Michigan Honor Flight. So whenever you gentlemen want to begin, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Good afternoon. Hello. Actually, I was going to turn it right over to Bob. We've been having so many different types of meetings. I believe this was the one at United Tribes of Michigan, but it could have been masked. He made a presentation quite a while ago, Bob, and it was a great presentation, and we finally got the information to our board, and here you are, Bob. Take it away.
All right. So first of all, my question for everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Bob Green. I'm the president of Mid-Michigan Honor Flight. How many of you are familiar with Honor Flight and what we do?
Yeah, we got some hands up, some hands down. If you could give us a recap of what you guys do, that would be appreciated. And this is online for our membership too, so it might be educational for them as well.
Okay. So Honor Flight started out in 2004 with Earl Morse, who was a physician's assistant in Ohio, talking to one of his World War II patients, and Earl is a veteran, and he was talking to one of his patients is a veteran, World War II, and he said, "So when now that the World War II memorial is done, are you going to go visit your memorial?" And the veteran told him no, that he probably couldn't afford to. And so Earl got together with 6 other of his friends, and they took 16 World War II veterans in private planes to Washington, D.C. to visit the World War II memorial. And that was the beginning of Honor Flight. Since then, there are hubs in 44 states. There are I believe 141 hubs now in 44 states nationwide, and since then, Honor Flight has taken over 300,000 World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials that are dedicated to their service to our country. So this spring, my vice president came to me and said, "Bob," he said, why or should we do an all Native American veteran honor flight?" And I said, that's a great idea. I'm sure there are plenty of Native American veterans in Michigan. So we did some research, and we found out that there are over 2,500 Native American veterans in Michigan. And I just went on my 25th honor flight. In the 25 flights I've been I've probably less than 5 veterans that I know for sure are Native American. There are others that may have had Native American blood, but there were only 5 that I know of for sure. And so when John came to me with this idea, I was like, this is so awesome. We need to do this. And so we reached out to the Michigan, the tribal council, to Frank, and said, how can we get on the agenda? And he got us on the agenda at I believe it was the June meeting. And we presented this to all 12 tribes, the United Tribes. And so from there, we've been trying to get to the individual tribes and to their tribal councils and present this to them. So basically, what this would look like is it would be to honor World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam veterans, but each veteran has to have a guardian fly with them, and we would take the younger era Native American veterans as their guardians. So it would be 150 plus Native American veterans from Michigan that would be able to go to Washington, D.C. We would leave Tuesday morning, and we would return Thursday evening. So it would be a 3-day trip, 2 overnights in Washington, D.C. And so right now it's scheduled to be is it's scheduled for September 29th of 2026 beginning on Monday, September 29th of 2026 and ending on October 3rd of 2026. So on the 29th, registration would be at the Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City. The Grand Traverse Band has agreed to host the event. So registration would be from 1 to 3 at the Grand Traverse Resort. We would have guardian training and a veterans meet and greet from 3 to 5. And then from 5 to 9 would be a dinner and a reception. The next morning we'd wake up, travel to the airport, fly from Traverse City to Dulles Airport, Washington, D.C. From Dulles, we would go to the Arlington Cemetery and see the changing of the guard. From Arlington, we would go to the Army Museum. We would go check in at the hotel where we're staying, have dinner and a reception. On October 1st, we would wake up, we would go to the World War II Memorial. From the World War II Memorial, we would go to the Korean War Memorial and the Vietnam Wall. From there, we would go to the Marine Corps Memorial. From the Marine Corps Memorial, we would go to the Air Force Memorial. From the Air Force Memorial, we would go to the Women in Service Memorial. From there, we would go to the Marine Corps Museum, return to the hotel, have dinner. On October 2nd, we would wake up, we would go to the Navy Museum. From the Navy Museum, we would go to the Native American Smithsonian and spend 6 hours in the Native American Smithsonian. From there, we would travel to the airport. We would fly back to Michigan, arriving back to Michigan around 8:30 p.m. At 9 o'clock, we would have a welcome home ceremony at the airport. The veterans, if they wanted to leave from there, could go home, or they could take a shuttle back to the hotel with us. And then on Friday morning, the 3rd, wake up and have breakfast together and then be dismissed around 9:30 a.m. And so what we're asking from the tribes is we're asking each tribe to make a donation of $25,000. The 3 Michigan Honor Flight hubs would work together. The Upper Peninsula hub covers all of the Upper Peninsula. Mid-Michigan Honor Flight covers 52 counties, everything from I-94 to the Mackinac Bridge. And then Talons Out Honor Flight covers from I-94 to the state border. The 3 hubs would work together, and we would take the 150 veterans to Washington, D.C. Your donation covers everything. So the veterans would not have to pay for anything unless they wanted to buy souvenirs or something at one of the museums or the memorials. But everything would be covered. When we do these quite often, we're doing 4 this year. We charter a 177 passenger Airbus 320 from Allegiant Airlines. That's covered in the donation, in your tribal donation. The tour buses, ground transportation, the meals. We take 50 wheelchairs with us so that the veterans have wheelchairs if they need them. If they don't need them, they have someplace to sit. We would provide each of the veterans and the guardians with 3 different shirts to wear, one for each day of the flight. They get a cinch bag that the guardians or the honorees get cinch bags that have snacks and personal items like chapsticks and tissues and a rain poncho. They get a lanyard and a luggage tag, so they have a lanyard that they have to wear around them at all times during the event. And that lanyard helps us to get them through TSA because they place their driver's license or their real ID in that lanyard, and then when we go to TSA, they just shoot us right through. Each one of the veterans or each one of the honorees and their guardians would receive a challenge coin. They would receive a pin. The female veterans, when we go to the Women in Service Memorial, we would before we went, we would register them at the Women in Service Memorial, and they would get a certificate. About 3 to 4 months after the conclusion, we take 2 professional photographers with us on the flight, and they take several well, probably between 15 and 20,000 photos. And when we get back from the flight, about 3 to 4 months after the conclusion of the flight, every participant and each tribal chairperson and everyone on the tribal council will receive a commemorative flight book of the event. We have the United States Park Police escort our buses when we're in Washington, DC. So I don't know, I believe you all got a copy of the proposal that we sent.
So Bob, my board administrator is shaking her head that we didn't receive anything. If you could send that to us, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
You can send it to her and she'll disperse it to the board.
Hold on just a second.
Mike, did you send it? Okay. All right, so Mike can work with Bob and he can get that sent out.
Okay, what email address do I need to send it to?
You can send it to Lana, your main contact so far, Bob.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll send it to Lana. I'll get that out right away. But there is a proposal, a written proposal, and then there's also a PowerPoint presentation that you guys can look at.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anything else to go over?
Any questions?
Okay, any questions, guys?
I wanted to add, Bob, how are expenses covered to get to Traverse City?
So we would cover that also.
So I have a
So
question, Bob.
what we would like to do is maybe bring them all by bus.
So Bob, so there's going to be 150 people attend this this trip to DC. Do you know if the tribes that are contributing financially are able to make selections out of that
Yes.
150?
Yes, so each tribe will be, so there's 11 tribes that are going to, so far that we know of. One tribe has opted out. So we're waiting on the other 11 tribes, which would give each tribe, I can't do the math in my head right now, but probably like 13 or 14 veterans that you could choose from your tribe.
That's what I figured, 13, 14, okay. And then, could you remind me again, when is the trip, from what date to what date, and then when do you need an answer by?
So we need a firm commitment from the tribe by December 1st of this year. The trip is September 29th of 2026 through October 3rd of 2026. And the only reason we need to do that is because the bus companies and the hotels and stuff, I've already made the reservations for the hotel and for the bus company and everything. But we just need, we need a firm commitment for them and to be able to know that we're going to be able to fiscally, to financially, participate.
Okay, I appreciate it. Rob?
I was just going to ask about the selection process and if that was on us, kind of the same thing. So that way, when we discuss with the board, we could determine if we could get someone from each of our units. I think this is a really great idea. So I really like this, but I wanted to make sure that we have some kind of say in the selection process, so we can spread it out amongst our members that are in different units and so. Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. I appreciate it.
What we will do is we will provide you with the applications that we use. And then it's a Word document, so we can make it, we can change the title on it so that we make it specific to your tribe. I will say this, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to work closely with each one of the tribes to make sure that we don't do or say anything that is, violates any tribal traditions or, is anything that would cause any issues. I really do appreciate the tribal veterans, and, we really want to work with the tribes and make this something that's a very worthwhile event for everyone.
Okay, thank you. So Bob, here's a question I got to ask, and I don't know if it's some way we could work around it, because it sounds like this is done by region, right?
Yes.
So we have like 60% of our members live outside of our region. And a lot of them are probably veterans, and I think that they might like to do this too, but it sounds like you're organizing it by service areas of tribes. Is there any way that we could work with some of the other flights to maybe get some of our at-large our members who don't live within the service area to become a part of this too?
Where do they live?
They're spread out in all 50 states.
Okay.
So it would be some kind of an effort to where we would work with your organization to say, how can we get some of those members who want to participate in those other flights?
So what we would do is if the application came to us, if they sent us an application, I would reach out to those other honor flight hubs and say, okay, I have an applicant for you, can you please, make every effort to get them on a flight as soon as possible.
Okay, and then they could identify that they're from Sioux Tribe, and then we could reach out to our members that live out of state and let them know that that's a possibility.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Isaac?
Hey, Bob, I'm in total agreement. I mean, it's less than $2,000 per person, and, we send youth to DC almost every year, so I'm very supportive, and if I'll have legal draft a resolution that I'll sponsor.
Awesome. Thank you.
Aaron?
So I support it too, and I was thinking maybe we would use cultural enhancement, but if
That
we,
is exactly what I was going to say. The next thing I was going to say is, Holly, Bill, is there any funding source other than the general fund that can pay for this? Because we don't have surplus funds in there with a budget deficit. So what I was going to recommend is $5,000 from every unit's cultural enhancement fund, and select 2 people. Yeah. Sorry, Aaron, did I say what you were going to say?
no, that's good. That's what I was thinking. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
The one question I wanted to ask you, Bob, is have you set something up with the American Indian Museum? And if you haven't, because that's where the Veterans Memorial is, if you haven't, I know the director, the Smithsonian director, and I could help with that. So it'd be nice if they did some kind of a, it's not too far off from Veterans Day, so they might be able to do, they might, ahead of time, they might be willing to set up a exhibit there is already the code talkers, but they might be willing to set up additional exhibit.
Sure.
So if you need that help, you can count on me.
Okay. Well, and yeah, that would be awesome, because I have called there twice and left messages and no one's returned my phone call.
I know the director, and also Kevin Gover, who's on the board. So
Okay.
Kim, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No,
Okay.
did the same.
Okay. So Bill, if you could answer that question, aside from cultural enhancement in the general fund, are you aware of any other funding sources in the tribe that could pay for this?
I'd have to check. When would the payment be due?
We would want payment by probably June 1st of next year.
Okay, well, clearly the cultural enhancement funds would be built back up by then.
How much do we have in all 5 units combined, if you had to give a guesstimation?
I'd say 550,
Yeah, so they can afford it.
yeah.
So-
If you split it between the units or did it on some prorated basis, the cultural enhancement funds could pay for it.
Yeah. So Isaac, what are your thoughts on including that in the resolution? Not a problem? Very good. Okay, I'll support it. All right, anything else to go over, guys?
Got that, Brian?
All right, appreciate it, Mr. Green. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.
All right,
Have a
guys.
great day.
We are going to jump around in the agenda a little bit because I like to get you guys out of here early. So we are 40 minutes ahead of schedule, and rather than just going on break, let's use that time. So let's have Larry come up. He wants to talk about the strategic planning discussion. We're not doing strategic planning at this time. We're just going to figure out a format, how to conduct that planning. And then after that, we just have the governmental human resources policy amendment / rescissions review, and then we're done for the day. So Larry?
And then some closed legal.
Yeah.
Can I have the last word? Yeah. Thanks for having me today. I'd like to go over the planning process outline that I had proposed. I think you guys all have a copy of the outline. Wonderful. So essentially what I wanted to do is run you guys through a series of facilitations. I have about 4 months worth of material that can be, the schedule can be played with a little more, a little less, depending on how much time you guys want to put into it. Each of the sessions would run about 4 hours. And the question is, would you want to do that on a board day or off a board day? I prefer, as far as facilitation, is having a room to do the facilitation in. It gives me an ability to, set everything up, have a really nice setup, do a really good job for you guys so that it's a really nice facilitation. Spent several months developing hundreds of materials that it's going to help with making this a very fast, easy, efficient process. I think you guys will really enjoy it.
So Larry, let me give you some direction right now then. So everyone has the planning process outline in front of them. And in that outline, we have some October dates. Well, we have October. Lana has told me that October's not going to work because those dates are basically all filled up. So we'd have to start in November if we were to do it like that. So it would go from November till February. So I can ask the board right now whether or not they're supportive of doing it on a Tuesday or non-Tuesday, and we can get that direction right now if you'd like.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm very flexible on you guys' time.
Okay, well, let's figure that out first of all. So any discussion on that? Because I'm eventually going to do a poll, right? Unless there's just a clear consensus. Aaron?
I don't think Tuesday, because I just don't think we will have the available time in the foreseeable future. And it needs a dedicated time. So on that question, I would say a different date. But when we circle back around, I've got some ideas about how we could do it. Both Tyler and I worked for a company when I was out of office, and we did 3 strategic plans for tribes across the country. And the way we do it doesn't seem to elicit sort of the right kind of input that we need. So maybe Tyler and I can give some tips and ideas about how to do it. There's some exercises and ways to go about it that will pull out from the board what we need. We don't need the board involved in every aspect of it because they won't be. It just won't happen. But you do need to have a cross-section of the board and senior staff to be able to kind of get like the drivers and the theme and kind of like the concept ahead of time. And then you give them direction to go off and do it, and then just bring it back for presentations to the board. The idea that the board's going to sit down and write a strategic plan, we know that's not going to happen. It's never worked that way. Larry comes with enthusiasm, he comes with his icebreakers, and then it kind of like people trail off and they leave halfway through the workshops, and I just don't think it's going to work that way.
Go ahead, Larry.
Can I note that this strategic planning session is drastically built differently than the last session? I have built a lot of things, crafted brand new goals, objectives. Everything's kind of made so it's like a lump of clay so that everyone can play with all these things. So I've come with a lot of content that's pre-developed, so it gives the board just ability to just shift things around, cut things out. It's more of something that they can essentially play with.
One thing that I would ask is, so it doesn't feel like it's predetermined though, because then you'll get pushback, is I think if you did a survey of the board, and I don't really mean like a survey, just like a review, ask the board, what are some of the systemic changes that they're interested in, that they're looking for, all of it, you start out up here without limitations of how much it's going to cost and all the practicalities, but like what do you want to see changed in the strategic plan? And what you'll find is there will be some things that are already in the strategic plan, but we just don't know it. But gain that information first. Find out collectively, there's quantitative and qualitative, to see what they actually want. And then focus your efforts based on what they're requesting. 90% of the strategic plan is just going to be continuing our existing strategic plan, because we assume that we're doing things like, that consistent with what our needs are. So it's likely going to be mostly focusing on any change. And then for the changes, how do we make those and operationalize that to happen? The thing that doesn't work with the board, and I'll tell you, because I know the way your brain works, it's a little esoteric sometimes, but that doesn't work when you're trying to get, like our board, to crystallize what they want or what they're looking for. So I think ahead of time, a survey to send you off what they're looking for, and then you can organize that and do it according to what they're looking for. So the icebreakers are probably a waste of time. I've heard that repeatedly, that those, we don't have time for that.
I have not built any icebreakers into this round. So,
Okay, Kim?
So I'm assuming Zoom's not going to work for these.
Zoom will work. It'll kind of, it'll, I think, rob from the experience a little bit, but it could be available.
Because I was thinking if we did it on a Monday or a Wednesday, then whoever travels could just be here and go the day before, day after.
I'd recommend it in person, so
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions, comments at this time? Okay, so let's do a poll, and we'll figure out whether or not the board's supportive of having the strategic planning sessions on a Tuesday or a non-Tuesday. So when Lana calls on you, just say Tuesday or non-Tuesday, we'll tally them up, give Larry his direction.
So could we just could Lana do that virtually?
Well, let's just decide.
If you guys tell me, I can individually ask the other board too. if you
Oh,
want.
okay.
Okay.
Let's just do the poll.
Okay. So Michael, Tuesday or other day? Kimberly Hampton.
Another day.
Rob.
Different day.
Kim Gravel.
Different day.
Isaac.
Same day. No, different. Had to throw you a
A contrarian,
Aaron.
different day.
So that's unanimous with who's present.
Okay, Larry. So we're gonna do this on a non-Tuesday, right? And yeah, you work with Lana, figure out dates that work for you, work for the board, that work most conveniently for the out-of-towners' schedule, so maybe they can stay in town to attend the workshops. We can put them up in the hotel room here on site, something like that.
Sounds great. I
Okay.
appreciate it so much.
You
Thank
need anything else from us?
I don't think so.
All right, appreciate it, Larry. Thank you so much.
Yep, bye.
All right, so the legal department and the board office is looking for some direction from us on a couple items. That's going to be closed because of attorney-client privilege. So at this point, we're going to be closed and give them some time. Go ahead and finish up this workshop. We're on our last item, which is government human resources policy amendments / reviews. So we've been tasking the different departments and the tribes to look at the codes that govern them, to try to find inconsistencies, try to find policy changes that make sense, and this is one of those meetings. So whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, so the first of 5 policies that we are going to bring forward is the the background check. This one specifically for child protection. So I'm just going to get right to where we're doing edits on it. Everything else in the first 6 pages is staying the same. So on page 4 pages, on page 4, on section O, we are changing it so it defines what one-on-one interaction with a child means. And it is saying that it is in a non-public setting at least once per week. So this will define a little bit more of it as exactly who really is working with kids. For just as a simple example, if you're a custodian in a building, you're not in charge of that child, you're not one-on-one with that child. So a custodian, in like this building, for instance, if they're walking by a kid, that is not one-on-one contact.
So the problem with the way that's phrased is, it's what we really want is to prevent somebody with certain convictions from having access, alone access. So one-on-one, so let's see, if that's stated broadly enough to be inclusive of that. In a non-public setting, so they would have access in a public setting?
No, not necessarily. So if we're thinking like the Big Bear, for example, all of those kids are with adults. Like they're not, if they're in our care, like in the child care, they're with adults. So if that one, it's probably a bad example because they would have background checks anyways. But just as an example, that person wouldn't be coming in and watching the kid on the, by themselves by any means. They would never be alone with a kid.
So this, all right, because this is HR, this applies to team members, right? And so it's not like we're talking about people who are not employed in that role that would have access, or like a janitor. So a janitor could have access in a non-public setting. So my problem is the one-on-one. The one-on-one suggests that they're working with them one-on-one. But if a janitor is a pedophile or, whatever, we didn't catch it somehow, they aren't necessarily going to be working with them one-on-one.
Correct.
But they have access in a non-public setting. That's a problem.
Right, but most of those positions we wouldn't, okay, so another maybe a better example than the Big Bear is, say you're working for facilities under Andrew, and you're only ever cleaning admin, you are never going to be alone with a kid there, right? Let's say there's a student worker there. That student worker is always being supervised by an adult who has been background checked.
You just modified that by adding the word alone. And that's what I'm concerned about, is this doesn't indicate that. So can we add the word alone as a modifier? Because that's the concern. People who perpetrate other people, like adults to minors, don't do it in a public setting. They don't. They do it when they're alone. So I don't know one-on-one is specific enough. If they have, maybe if it's alone, one-on-one access, involve personal one-on-one access, I don't know, I need a legal.
One-on-one would be alone because you would be the one and the one would be the kid. So that, that would be the alone. And if you're working alone with a kid, you would have the background check.
Okay, I will relent.
Okay, we can keep going.
I didn't know if Ryan, were you going to add something or no?
No, keep going.
Okay.
And then I'll look at this language, and if I think of something, I'll chime in later, but you guys keep going.
Okay, so then the next section is saying that it's essentially any person over the age of 18. Prior to this, it did not say that, so then it was saying that we had to background check children under 18, which you can't do a background check on anybody under 18, and even if you did, you don't really get any information, and you can't use it against them. So that's where we changed it so that it's specifically 18 and older. And then the next portion here is it's not that we're removing this, it's just removing it from the policy, so that it leaves it so that HR legal, and then the division directors, such as, let's say, education, they can come together to determine whether or not the position that is in question needs to have a background check or not.
The only problem with that, well, it may not be a problem. The thing is, as long as legal is ensuring that we're in compliance with federal regulations, because there are some specific federal regulations that are dictated that we don't have any flexibility over.
And Josh Elliott went through this with them, and with that attention, with that focus, to make sure that we were covering everything we would need to federally and everything, so.
Okay, we can keep going.
Yep, and then now the only other section that is being edited is taking the procedures out, just to be standard without any of our policies, removing the procedures out of it and having it just be the policy. So those are all the changes to this particular one.
So will there be a companion procedural manual to go with it, though? Okay.
And it'll be the same pretty much. It's just that, this way, if things change, we don't have to go back every time and change it. A super simple example is on the policy right now, we can't change it, but it says that we'll only hold your records for 1 year when you leave, but yet it contradicts itself and says that we have to hang on to the records for 5 years. So now we're hanging on to records for people who don't even work here for 5 years, and there's how many 500 files that we're holding on to that don't apply. They're in file cabinets, just loads of them. So if we're able to edit the procedure, we can adjust it to not have to hang on to stuff that is irrelevant.
So I'm fine with moving a procedure out from the policy, but as long as, again, it comes back to a default that we have to comply with certain federal laws with employment, so no procedure should be able to skip or circumvent that, or be written in a way that's ambiguous so that someone could interpret that it doesn't apply later.
Okay, we can move on to the next policy?
Yep.
Do we want to take a consensus at that?
I didn't know if you wanted to do it, Lana, after each one, or?
It probably makes sense to do it after each one, because otherwise we'll start picking them up.
Okay, so does anyone object to this being on an agenda to vote on? Okay, hearing no objection, let's get it on an agenda.
Okay, so from here on, they get much easier. So just thought I'd throw the hardest one out. Okay, so the next one is the remote work policy. I'm not familiar exactly with the history on this. I was just informed that I believe it was a board direction a while back to add on this one sentence that says all remote work agreements must be evaluated every 90 days and may be discontinued at will at any time at the request of either the team member or management. That sentence was not in policy, and that is all that is changing on this, is to add that in there so that there's some sort of way to hold people accountable every 90 days.
Okay, Aaron?
Unless this changed somewhere else along the way, this was created in order to accommodate people during the pandemic. And we had concerns about staff that would be director level or supervisors who were denying people. So we mandated that that be reported up through the executive so that we would know about that. So we weren't unduly denying people. So I think that if this means, if we're not giving any direction about when it would discontinue, then it's left to the discretion of the supervisor. And so I don't know, maybe we're past the remote era and we're just going to eliminate remote, or I think it makes sense to have some semblance of, if we are continuing to do remote, rather than leave it to the supervisor to deny people. Because what we did see in the past was some supervisors that were jealous, or if the politics in their department, and some people were being unduly denied. And they could do work remotely just as good as they were doing remote in person. So I don't want to leave it to the discretion of the supervisor. I think this can be enacted as it is, but we need to decide collectively, are we getting rid of a remote policy or what? So we're giving a driver, and the manager doesn't have the discretion.
So Ashley, I have a question. Are we keeping track of denials?
So I've been asked a few different times to bring forward, let me know who's being denied. But so HR has no regulations towards anything to do with remote work. That is on between the supervisor and the team member. So if a team member goes up to a supervisor and says, I want to work remote, and they say no, there's nothing, we have nothing to prove that they said that. There's nothing to turn in.
But what we have to do is we have to build a mechanism where that's captured. So maybe we need to do things differently, but if I get complaints that says, hey, my supervisor is denying everyone remote work because maybe they have a family member that works in the department that has a position that can't be worked remotely, what can you do for me? I can't even verify whether or not that's taking place because we're not keeping track of it. And, you know, this isn't you, because, I mean, you're interim and you're new to the role, but the board has asked for that information time after time after time.
Directed that information
Directed,
to be
and if
tickled up
it-
to the CFO.
And if you're telling me that we don't have a system in place to capture that data, then we just need to change the way that we do it. I don't know, maybe HR needs to be looped in?
I already
you know?
have a plan to change it.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
The intent is that if they turn in the paperwork to HR first and not their supervisor, then HR, we can then reach out to the supervisor, and they would then have to say no to us.
That's perfect, because I mean, like, if an employee catches their boss in the break room and say, hey, what's the chances I can get remote work? And say, nah, we're not doing that anymore. They won't even formally go through the process to where they're formally denied just because it's verbal. So if we can reroute it so HR is contacted first, that will really help us capture that data. And I don't know whether or not the board's supportive of continuing remote work, but I do know in a lot of different departments, it wasn't applied evenly and it wasn't applied fairly. And I'll just say that. You know, you have different departments on the state level where an entire workforce is on remote, but, you know, we're not granting it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So if we could do that, Ashley, I think the entire board would be supportive.
Okay. No problem. All right, so this is literally all that's on this one, so.
The same thing, we've asked for the same thing for a couple of additional policies. One was educational leave, because sometimes supervisors are jealous that people might advance beyond them, and they deny them unduly. So we've asked for that information to be recorded to us. And the third one is moonlighting. Because moonlighting still is left to the discretion of the supervisor, and in some cases, they make good choices, in some cases, they don't make good choices.
Can we have those go through HR first as well? Because what was the first thing that you talked about, Aaron? Not moonlighting, but the other one?
Education leave.
Yeah, so like every now and then I'll be contacted by a team member and the report would be this, hey, you know, I put in to enter into a master's program and my supervisor said no, and then fast forward a year later, it's like, hey, you remember when I asked my supervisor permission? Well, they said no, and I left jobs. I no longer work for the Sioux Tribe, but guess who's in that very program that I tried to get accommodations to leave? My boss who denied it, you know? I mean, there's stories, you can look it up, you know, so if we could reroute those so they go through HR first, it'd be awesome.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so that's that one. So we're moving on to the next one. Nobody has,
So is anyone opposed to this being on an agenda? Okay, let's get on an agenda.
all right, and the next three are fun. Okay, so this one is the calling card policy. So all this one is we would like this one to be rescinded, removed, never to be seen again.
So what is this? This must have been before my time.
This is when you used to have to purchase cards. I don't even remember them. You had to purchase cards or something.
For long distance, so if you have to make a call when you're on the road, you've got.
Did you know they used to charge for long distance?
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Somebody said before you were before.
So is anyone opposed to this policy being eliminated and it being on an agenda to vote on?
Not a problem.
Okay, not a problem. Let's get it on there.
It gets better.
Education leave, moonlighting.
No, I think this one's even better, actually. This one is the communication policy. I can read it to you if you'd really like. It's a good one.
Let's read it.
So you are encouraged to identify and communicate information that will improve the effectiveness of your department and the company through your chain of command.
That's a good thing we had that one in there, hey? So is anyone opposed to this being snipped and being on an agenda? It's kind of a common sense one. You wouldn't think it'd land on policy, but okay. So we'll trim that one as well.
All right, and then the last one is the pager policy. I really don't even know if these things exist anymore. I'm not positive, but we have a policy on pagers.
We
So
do
is-
have law enforcement.
Is anyone opposed to this policy getting snipped and it being on an agenda?
We make the office.
Pagers really don't exist that much anymore. We have texting now.
Walkie,
Yeah.
radios.
So any opposition? Okay, so we'll snip this one as well. Anything else to go over, Ashley?
Those are all the 5 of them.
Okay, anything else to go over from the board? That's all the agendas today? All right, workshop adjourned, everybody. So just an announcement though. So there's an orange shirt walk in St. Ignace that's taking place right now until I believe 5 o'clock. So everyone's encouraged to attend that as well. And we're also having an Orange Shirt Day feast at the Naganagijic at 5 o'clock. So I hope to see everyone there. All right, workshop adjourned.